Morning, we're learning as Chutz for Shlema Filan Chaya Baserach. We're on Dav Zayin Amid Aleph, 10 lines down by the two dots. So the Gemara says, Itmar, Taida Sheshachta L'Shem Taida Ksher. We said a Taida that was shechted, the Gemara brings a memra, that a Taida that was shechted L'Shem Taida is, Shechta L'Shem Taida is Chaverei. Rabba Amakshera, Rav Chizda Amapsul. So what is this case of Taida? Sheshachta L'Shem Taida's Chaveri. Good morning, Rufal. We're on Zayin and Aleph by the two dots. So Rashi explains the case. Taida Sheshachta L'Shem Taida's Chaveri, about a little more than halfway down in the Rashi. Lo Sheshachta Amanashi Yishapa B'Misha Eina Baleh. It's not talking about a Shinu Bailam. Taida is like every other carbon, that the Shinu Bailam is kosher, but lo yalu b'alam shem chayva. Ve'ein zeh shini b'alam el shini kodesh. What we're talking about over here is a case of not shini b'alam, but rather shini kodesh. So ha'shel l'ruven toida u'l'shimin toida acheres. V'shachar is toidash shel zeh l'shem toidasoi shel zeh. He's not saying that this is Shimon's carbon. Reuven is bringing a carbon. He's not saying it's Shimon's carbon, but he has in mind it should be for the as a thanks. The Taida is a thanks for, for crossing the Yam or for recovering from a sickness or getting out of prison. So he had in mind for whatever it was that Shimon needed to bring a Taida. He wants his Taida to be for that same thing, not for Shimon, but for the reason that Shimon had. Okay. So that's the question. So it's a machlokes. Rabbah says it's a kosher carbon. Rav Chizda says it's a pasul carbon. Rabbah amakshera, Rabbah amakshera, taid l'shem taid nishchata. In the end, it's a kosher carbon because he did it for a taida. It doesn't make a difference. We're not going to care about whose taida it was. That means whose thanks it was. He's saying thank. He intends it to be for the Kohen has in mind the right person, but he just thinks he's thinking it should be someone else's reason. But it's still a shem taida, so it's a kosher carbon. It needs to be for his own, and we're going to see why he uses the lashon of shlamim. That's going to come from the explanation of what the reasons of Rab and Rava come from, why they said what they said. But he says it has to be l'shem his own taida. Amar Rabba, mino amino. Rabba said, where do I know that this is going to be kosher? The Tanya, ubesar zevach taida shlamav. The Torah says he should bring his taida, and the besar, the basar of his taida shlamav, he should eat on the day that he shechts it. What is this coming to tell you? Why is it called taida shlamav? It's not a shlamim, it's a taida. Taida and shlamim are separate things. A taida, a shlama person brings when it's a gift that he brings when he decides to do it. He could give it as a neder and a dava. But a taida is brought for one of the very specific thanks for things that a person needs to thank for. So why is it called taida shlamav? Balalamid taida sheshachta l'shem sham kshera. If someone brings a taida and he has a mind for a shlamim, it's kosher. Sham shenichtu l'shem taida psulim. Why is it that a taida that was brought and had in mind for a shlamim it's kosher, but a shlamim that was brought having in mind a taida is pasul? What's the difference? Taida kriya shlamav ain't shlamim kriya taida. Because the Torah says taida shlamav. Zevach taida shlamav. His taida can be called a shlamim. but it doesn't go the other way around. We don't call a shlomim a taida. So Dr. Gemara, shlomim l'shem taida psula, but the mashmais from that is that if, so we said from the pasuk that a shlomim l'shem taida is possible because it's only taida shlama, but not shlam of taida. Ha-taida, we say, but the mashmais of this brisa is that a shlomim l'shem taida is possible. Ha-taida l'shem taida kshera. But the case that we're talking about, where a person brought a shlom l'shem, brought his taida l'shem taida, but he just didn't have, he had someone else's reason for thanking in mind, that would be kosher. My lav the chavre. Doesn't mean that he had in mind his friend's machshavas taida, and was saying even so it's kosher as long as it's being brought on his behalf. The taida is being brought on his behalf, and it's intended for a taida. It doesn't make a difference that it has in mind someone else's reason for the taida. So no, it doesn't mean that it could even be not like, so Rav Chizah would answer, no, I don't agree with you, Rabbi. It's not what the inference, not what the diak is. When the brisa says that a taida, a shlamim l'shem, a taida l'shem shlam is good, but shlam l'shem taida is not good. But a taida l'shem taida is good. It doesn't mean a taida l'shem taida where he has in mind his friend's reason for thanking. It means for his own reason for thanking. And as Rashi explains, of the chavrei mai psula, it's talking about where he had his own different reasons for thanking. He had more than one of the things that happened to him, and he had in mind, he had originally brought it for one, and now he has in mind the other one. But avad the chavrei mai psula. So the Gemara says, so what are you saying? So according to Rav Chizda, you're saying that it's saying that it's kosher l'didei. But if he had in mind for his friend, it would be possible, ad tani shlam shem taida psula, then the brisa itself doesn't make sense. Why would the brisa say a taida l'shem shlam is kosher, but a shlam l'shem taida is possible? Listen to taida, say a taida l'shem shlamim is kosher, but a taida l'shem taida for chavrei is possible. But koshkein shlam l'shem taida. And certainly I know that a shlam l'shem taida is possible. If I tell you that a taida l'shem taida, when he has in mind his friend's reason for giving a thanks, it's going to be possible. Certainly if he has a shlamim, which is not at all the same achshava. Zok the Gemara, shlam l'shem taida day, it's no. I need to tell you, if he brings a shlamim, and he has himself a taida that he has to bring, I might think since the taida is called a shlam, shlam and nami kriyan taida. I would say it goes both ways. That they're identical. That they're both, not that they're identical, but they're both called by each other's names. So taida v'chishach l'shem taida l'chshuru. So therefore, I would think it could be it's true that a taida l'shem taida schaverai is possible because it's someone else's machshavas taida, and that's going to be possible. It's a shini kodesh because you're having in mind a different carbon taida that's being brought for a different reason. But I might be confused and say though that if a person is bringing a shlamim, a taida l'shem, a shlamim l'shem taida, if it's his own taida and his own shlamim, that's kosher because it's all the same person. And one might think that they both are identical, or like we said, they're both called interchangeably. You could call it taida shlam, shlam taida. So that's why we had to tell you no, that a shlamim l'shem taida is no good because they're not interchangeable, even if it's the same person. But it's not, you can't deduce from that a taida l'shem taida is going to be, it must be kosher. Okay, Amara. The Gemara is going to list a bunch of dinim that Rava said. A lot of them we saw earlier in the course of the last few blot, of the last 7 blot. Amara, chatas sheshachta l'shem chatas kshera l'shem oila psula. A chatas that was brought l'shem chatas is kosher, meaning if he had, the Rashi gives the example, if he had a chatas, he had to bring a chatas for chelev, and he had to also bring a chatas for eating chaylev, and you have to bring chatas for eating dam. Even though the owner, the kayin, had in mind the chatas that was for the chaylev, and it was really the chatas for the dam, it's still going to be kosher. L'shem oila psula, but if it's l'shem oila, then it's the regular din of our Mishnah that a chatas that was brought shaloi l'shem, there's a shini kodesh on a chatas. It's possible it's not going to be all l'bayim shem chayv. He's going to have to bring another chatas. My time. What's the reason? V'shachat oisel l'chatas. The Torah says you should shecht it for a chatas. Amar Rachman. V'arechatas shem chatas nishrita. There, and he did it. He did it l'shem chatas, even though it was supposed to be a chatas chaylev, and instead he had in mind the chatas dam. It was l'shem chatas, l'shem oila psula. And we said, but if he does it l'shem oila psula, where does that come from? V'amar Rava chatas shachta misha mechayiv chatas psula. Okay, l'shem oila psula. But if it's done l'shem oila, then it wasn't yaitz that it has to be chatas l'shem chatas. V'amar Rava. Rava says another din that seems to be in conflict with this previous thing that we just said. Chatas sheshachta al misha mechuyev chatas psula. Says a chatas that was brought on someone who's mechuyev chatas is potter, is pasul. Means if it's a shini bailim, someone else is mechuyev chatas, that's going to be pasul, because chatas, you can't have a shini bailim in chatas. We're going to learn that out in the Gemara later on. Al misha mechuyev oila, but if he has in mind someone who's mechuyev oila, it's kosher. Where does that come from? What does that mean? Why is it going to be kosher if it was al misha mechuyev oila? Before the Gemara had suggested that maybe it's because the mina machrava, the la mina le machrava, but we said that this is just a machshava. No, I'm sorry that it was. I'm sorry, not the mina machrava. We wanted to say that it's because it's psul begufa, but we said it's just a machshava. The machshava in either case is either in the guf or not in the guf. It doesn't make difference what he's thinking about. That shouldn't change it to be whether it's begufa or not. In any case, my timer. So we said, and this was the mina machraba. My timer. So what's the reason? I'm sorry, it's not really gufa because that was talking about we had a machshava of shini bailam as opposed to shini kodesh. But we said the lav mina loy machraba because we're saying a machshava is oila. That was the Gemara before. But in any case, the Gemara over here says my timer. Why is it that if you bring a chatas al misha mechuyev oila and you have in mind the second person, you have a shini bailam, you think of a different person who's mechuyev oila, it's kosher. My time of a chiper olav. The Torah says of a chiper olav. What's the whole pasuk? That's called chalba yaktir hamzbeika chelev zevachim v'chiper olav akoyim echatosoi v'nisachlei. The b'mechaper on him olav v'loy al chaverei. We had the Gemara brought this before that the din is that the chatas has to be brought for him, not on his chaverei. Chaverei dum yedidei. But since it says it's brought in the pasuk that it should be chiper olav, it should be mechaper on him, the chaver has to be similar to him. But mechayiv kapar kamoisoi. Only someone else who is. It's only if he has in mind a chaver who is similar to him. So a chaver who is also bringing the chatos that passes, then olav applies. But someone who's mechayiv and oila, that's not included in the pasuk. The pasuk only included someone else. If you have in mind olav on him, someone who is bringing v'chiper olav akoyim echatosoi. That's if someone also bringing a chatas, and this other person if he's bringing an oila is not considered a shini bailam to pasel. V'amar Rava, another din of Rava, chata sheshachta al mi she'einu mechuyev klum.
Are those not say to each other?
Yes, I think I mixed it up with the next thing. It's not really, that's not Soisa. This third one that we'll bring from Rav is Soisa, the second one. The first two are they're not really Soisa, they're just contrasting, I should say. It comes out the opposite way around. The first one we said that if you do it l'shem the same thing, it's going to be pasul. We said if you do it l'shem chatas, it's kosher. You do it l'shem oil, it's pasul. That was the first thing we said. Now we're saying the other way around. If you do, if your friend is mechoyev achatas, then it's going to be pasul. If your friend is mechoyev oil, it's going to be kosher. So it's just contrast. But this second thing that we just said, there has to be chaver dum yedidei. Only a chaver that's mechoyev achatas is going to be pasul at shina bailam. V'amar Rava, chatas sheshachta al mi she'ein mechuyev klum. A chatas that was brought, was geschachten, on someone who's not mechuyev anything. Psula. It's pasul. Why? Now that's l'chayr not like we just said. We just said it's only someone chaver dum yedidei is also chayev a chatas. And now we're saying someone who's not mechuyev anything at all, it's also going to be pasul. How could that be? Because everyone is mechuyev essays. You can't get them all. You're gonna miss some essays along the way. So everyone's mechuyev essays. And Rava says a chatas is also mechaper on essays that a person do. Classically, a chatas is brought on lois essays. Lois essays sheyesh behem kares, like chelev and dam, but it doesn't necessarily include essays where a person was not yetzer an essay, was a mavatal an essay. So how is that going to where does that come from? Mikal v'chaimer. He says, Rava says that it's going to be mechuyev on a chatas is going to work for a chayve essay. From a kal v'chaimer, if it can be mechuyev even on lois essay, sheyesh behem kares, certainly it's going to be mechuyev on chayve essay that don't have kares in them. Sak Gemara, the memra the bas minahi. Are you saying that a chatas and an oila are both the same thing, right? You bring an oila for essays, and you bring a chatas for lois essays. But now we're saying that the chatas can also cover essays. So you're saying a person who has in mind to bring an oila, it's considered the same thing as a chatas. But we just said before that someone who brings we said before that someone who brings it for someone who's mechuyev an oila, it's kosher. Because we said it has to be olav dum yedidei. So the Gemara, no. Mikiva mechapra mikufya, mikiva loy mechapra, mikufya mechapra. We had this phrase before. Mikiva means a chatas kavua. A chatas, when you bring a chatas, it's not going to fully be mechaper for the essay. It's a partial kapara. So mikufya mechaper, it provides a partial kapara. So therefore, as soon as a person is mafresh an oila, so then the oila becomes the only thing that can be mechaper on this essay, because really a chatas, although there's a kal v'chaimer that says it's mechaper, it doesn't bring a full kapara. An oila brings a full kapara. So once he's mafresh an oila, only the oila can be mechaper on it, and the chatas no longer can be, and therefore it's lav dum yedidei, and therefore it will not a machshavas oila. If someone's actually was mafresh an oila, it's not going to, the kohen's machshava is not going to passel it. But if he didn't separate an oila, if he just had a machshava that should be for an essay, that is enough. That it does provide a partial kapara for the essay in a place where there was no oila separated, because it does provide the partial kapara, and therefore the chatas will also be mechaper on the oila. So chatas mechaper, that's what he says. Chatas mechaper al chayve essay. So chatas sheshachta amisha enich mechuyev klum is going to become pasul, because that person also has chiyuvim of essay. V'amar Rava. This is right, the very first Gemara that we saw after the Mishnah. We quoted this Rava. V'amar Rava, oila sheshachta shaloi lishma, asher lizadama shaloi lishma. The Gemara said on Daf Beis, and we're seeing it now, If someone brought his oila and he shechted it, shaloi l'shma, he had in mind for a shlamim. So we said, the din is that it's a kosher for all l'bayim l'shem chayv. V'loy all l'bayim shayv, sorry, l'shem chayv. Why? And also lizugdama shaloi l'shma. And you can't say, okay, I already messed up the lishma aspect of this carbon, so I can blithely continue on and do the rest of it shaloi lishma. No, we don't say. We don't say that. He has to do the rest of it properly. Could either, this is what the Gemara said also on Daf Beis, could either be from a pasuk or from a svara. But over there we did it the other way around. We said the svara first. And then it says nedava. So the Gemara asks, why does it start off saying neder and then switch it to nedava? It's coming to tell you, if you do it as it's properly done, then you're yotzi and neder. But if not, it converts into a nedava. And you're not going to be yotza. You're going to have to bring another carbon to be yotza yechiv of the neder. Because now it turned into a nedava. But the Gemara said, I'm back on Daf Beis, but a nedava, lamaisa, you still have to be lishma. So you can't change. That's where we see that you have to continue doing it lishma. That's the pasuk. Because he was mishana ba, he should continue to be mishana. K'dereish perka, like we said in the beginning of the parak, just because he changed something now, mehechatesa, he should go and continue changing it. Ba'amar Rava, oila haba la'acha misa. When someone brings a oila, Ruvain died, and Ruvain was yarshened him, and Ruvain had already set aside an oila to be brought, and now, I'm sorry, Yaakov died. Yaakov had set aside an oila, and Ruvain, his son, yarshened him, and now he yarshened the oila. So now Ruvain has to bring the oila. Rafal, what time are they davening slichas?
7:30.
No, 7:30. Yeah. I think
Okay.
nobody here. Yeah.
Okay, so just give me a heads up when it starts.
Well, I need to be before that. I'm still at my house.
You have to get there from your
Actually,
house.
no, they might be davening in different.
Okay, so we'll stop in.
I'm right now in the main base matters.
You have a bad connection, but I'm going to stop in 8 minutes. We'll stop at 7:25. They also have to really get to davening. So shachta. So avamar rava oil habal achamis. If a Irish brought a carbon after the death of his father, shachta b'shini kodesh psula. If he shechted it with having in mind a different carbon, it's puzzle. B'shini bailim kshera. But a Irish who brings his father's carbon, his oila, and he has in mind a different bailim, he doesn't have in mind Yaakov, who was the one who originally said it, but someone else, it's kosher. Once Yaakov died, even though the carbon is being brought, it's too late to have in mind a different. There is no bailim really, because he's not alive. He disagrees. He says yesh bailim lachamisa. Now the goes Amalei Rav Ashi Rav Pinchas Breder Rav Ami. He asked Rav Ami Breder Rav Pinchas Breder Rav Ami. Dafka Amar Mar yesh bailim lachamisa. Are you disagreeing with what we had said? That what Rava had said. Rava said that ain't bailam la'achamisa, and therefore you don't have to bring another carbon when there's a shina bailam on a oil that's brought by a Irish. Are you disagreeing and saying yesh bailam la'achamisa, and therefore the Irish is going to have to bring another carbon because this carbon is possible, is still an obligation to bring it? Dilma, or maybe you're saying a different thing. You're not talking about whether that you agree that it doesn't have to be brought because there's no bailam la'achamisa. That means the father doesn't have any. He's not alive to have an obligation. Dilma, so what are you saying? The ikka kama say gabe mechapra. It's coming to say yesh bailam la'achamisa that the son is going to becomes the new owner. And now he's going to get a kapara on his essays. Amle dafku kamina. He said, no, I meant like the first pshat. I wasn't saying that the son now gets a kapara for all of his essays, but rather I was saying that I'm disagreeing with what Rava said. I said I believe that there's still a chiyuv to bring another carbon because there is possible to have shinu bailim, even though the original owner is not here. But if you switch it to a different owner, that's still a shinu bailim. For Amar Rava, oil doirin he. An oiler that's brought is considered like a present. What does that mean? So Rashi, it's hard to understand this. Rashi explains it. Oiler dairin he, a couple of lines up in Rashi. Ein a bal chaper al essay kapara mamish. An oiler is not brought to be mechaper on the essay the same way a chatas is mechaper on a lois essay when you do a lois essay b'shayir. El acha shek kafra ha-tshuva al essay, after a person does tshuva for neglecting the essay, he ba lahakbalas panim, it comes as like a tribute. Adam she sarach v'melech v'ritzo al yedei praklitin, like someone who the melech is angry at him, the king is angry at him, and he gives to his lobbyists, give him some money, he gives a donation to make him feel better. When he comes to greet him, he brings the darin. So the oila is after the tshuva is already mechaper, then you bring the oila as a darin. I don't know if this is true because I really, it's something I should know. I'm not certain if the oila is mechaper in an essay, even that's done b'mezid. That means when I don't know if there is such a thing as a mezid. You just neglected to do it. So I don't know if there's a mezid or a shagig. So it could be that a chatas, which is done b'shagig, you need a kapara, the carbon could be mechaper. But an essay, which could even be sort of b'mezid, so that it's not going to help unless you do tshuva for what you did b'mezid. Heichidami, what does that mean that Rava says oila is a darin? Idaleka tshuva, if there's no tshuva, Zevachim te'eva, there's no possibility of getting a kapara unless you do tshuva for what you did wrong. Ideka tshuva, once he did tshuva, Tanya, Avraham mitzvah essay v'shav le'zazim b'shamaychem. It's a good thing to be learning right before Rosh Hashanah. If someone was over on a mitzvah essay and then he does tshuva, he immediately gets a mechil on it. So then you don't need a carbon to get a kapara. It was already machal. El shmamina darin hu. You see from here that it's a darin. Tanya nami hachi amar Shimon. I'll bring you another raya from a brayso. Chatas lama ba. What does a chatas come for? Lama ba lechaper. Of course, we know what a chatas comes to be kapara. El lama ba lefnei ayla. Whenever you have to bring an ayla and a chatas, you always first bring the chatas, then you bring ayla. Lefrak l'nichlas ritza prak and nichlas darin achrov. Because the chatas is in the sense that a chatas is brought to be mechaper, and the oil, like we just said, is brought as a dairin after the person already did tshuva. So since a chatas needs to be mechaper, so you need the chatas, you can't bring the dairin until you first got a kapara on your chatas, then you do the oila following that. Okay, I guess we'll leave this next thing for everyone has to get going. So we'll have to leave this next Gemara for Matzi Yom Tov, as Hashem. I see you getting up. I'm not gonna.
It's okay.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I know. Ufal also has to get going to go to his minion.
Interesting that I heard.
I'm sorry.
Concept that I heard a concept from Goyish source that goes that no sinner, every sinner has a future, every saint has a past.
Wonderful.
Every sinner has a future, every saint has a past.
I got it.
No, I mean because the Gemara says here that everybody is.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I can't literally hear what you're saying.
The oiler is that every Jew has something that to bring an oiler for.
Right. Everyone has.
Every sinner has. Every sinner has.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. No,
Yo,
someone kind of hates. So, yeah.
yeah.
Right. So every saint has a history.
Aksiva chsima tova, good
Good
ben
advice,
shor,
sure.
with nachas and success and
Wow.
all good Zevachim.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Take care.